Okay, hi everybody. Welcome to Be Found Online's webinar, Stop Chasing Google Rankings, presented by Be Found Online CEO Steve Krull. I'm Brian Hall, and I'll be administering today's webinar. Before we get started, I have a short list of housekeeping items for you. Duration. Today's webinar is scheduled to last a total of 45 to 50 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, depending on Q&A. Recording. The webinar is being recorded. On Monday, you will receive an email that will include a link to an on-demand recording of today's webinar, so you can rewatch it at your leisure. Q&A. The webinar does include a Q&A session. Should you have a question, please submit it via the Zoom Q&A function. You see that down below in the tray, the Zoom tray. I'm monitoring those questions and will tee up several questions for Steve towards the end of the webinar. Please know that during the course of the webinar today, we expect to receive more questions than we can possibly answer. Rest assured that we're capturing your questions and we'll get to as many of them as we can, and we'll follow up with you if we can't get to your question in the time allocated today. A little preview as well for what's coming down the road from Be Found Online. Our next webinar is scheduled for noon Central on June 24th. It's entitled Personalizing Your B2B LinkedIn Marketing Strategy. We'll share that information again, as well as a registration link later in this webinar. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy today's webinar. And without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce to all of you Steve Krull. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for the run-up. Welcome, everybody. Grab some popcorn or grab your lunch. I'll take you on a quick ride through why I believe you should stop chasing Google rankings. Hint, I want Google to chase you instead. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we can lead the charge and how we can make some things happen. So welcome. So why should we stop chasing Google? Thoughts? I'm sure you have thoughts. Wait, why should I stop chasing Google? Google pays my rent. Listen, I get it. I understand it. This is not about ignoring Google. It's about not chasing Google. Let's talk about this for a moment. First of all, I think when we spend too much time and energy chasing Google, we miss the basics of marketing. Whether you're talking marketing funnels or you're talking the 4 Ps of marketing, we're missing out on the fundamentals of marketing. If we can go back to that a little more and augment some of the true marketing that happens already or maybe should happen, just complementing that a bit, we're going to be a lot more effective overall. Number 2, our energy is disproportionately spent on Google rankings. Now, please understand, if you've got a large site and 50,000 e-commerce SKUs and you've got to write product reviews or you've got to write product information, category information, yes, there's a lot of care and feeding. Yes, there's also a lot of SEO that goes into that. I get it. And it's complicated. I'm not saying we're giving up on SEO here. I'm just saying that we disproportionately spend our energy sort of focusing on whether or not we can move party supplies up from the number 5 spot to the number 3 spot. And we stare at party supplies and we let that drive our strategy. What I'm suggesting is that's a little bit backwards for today's SEO and even content and our web strategy. Next on our list, your customer is more than a keyword. If there's something I want you to remember today, it's that your customer is more than a keyword. It's not about the best tool for the job. It's not about those things. Your customer is your customer. We talk about personas all the time. We talked about marketing Mary or Matthew, right? We build these personas and we put pictures on slides and we talk about whether or not they vacation in the Bahamas and if they're connected 24/7. That's fine. That information is necessary. I'm just saying we need to use it a little differently and we need to let the customers drive to the keywords and we'll get there. We'll get there. Finally, don't chase Google. Chase your customer. And what I'm saying, what I'm thinking is that if we do this, if we chase our customers, Google's going to start chasing us a bit. If we focus on our customers, Google's going to chase us. It's going to work backwards. The reason I say that partially is because of the recent Google Page Experience Update announcements, because it was supposed to be this month and they've delayed it into July, I think. If anybody knows the exact dates, please post it in the chat so we can share with the team. But Google delayed their page experience update. But if you were with me the last time I spoke about page experience updates with Mr. Dalton Finney, you'll know that that's a user experience update from Google. The first time in what I see is all the Google updates that they're talking about the users and about user experience and making our lives better. So if I think about that and I think about the way we're looking at this, it puts the customer in front, and we can think more about our customer. So here's what we're going to talk about today. I think you might have figured out already that we're going to talk a lot about the customer. I want to talk about the customer journey a little bit and think about how we use content or assets within that customer journey. I think all too often we think that we need to write blog posts and articles and ebooks and we're done there. I don't think we're done there. I think what we're doing is we're missing opportunity to talk to our customers throughout that customer journey. And even, dare I say, the customer lifecycle. We're not going to go into after they've become a customer and doing that, the other parts of it to keep them a customer and retain them. That's a different story here. We're talking about the customer journey, getting them in the front door and the role of content in that. And then, hey, Steve, wait a minute. You said we're not chasing Google anymore. So what about SEO? Then, of course, if we're talking about SEO, I do want to share some platform thoughts. My favorite platforms for SEO, there are a million platforms out there. I like platforms that are very good at SEO out of the box. They make your lives easier. They make my life easier. They make Google's life easier. And then, of course, final thoughts. I'll share what I think in terms of the way you can look at this going forward and how you might build some things. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into some of this content. All right. What does your customer want? What are they trying to do? There are, in the top 100 questions asked to Google, 20 of them are how-to questions. Now, it might be simple how-to questions, but the reality is we're looking for answers when we search. We're trying to figure out how to do something, where to buy something, whether a solution is going to fit, whether this new vendor is the right one compared to our existing vendor, or we're comparing vendors. So it's really, really interesting to think about that. So what is a customer really trying to do? What do you do when you start a search? Why are you starting a search? You're trying to answer a question usually. And you're finding a direction, you're collecting information, you're educating yourself. No matter what it is, it's generally starting with a question. It might just be, where's Portillo's? It could be something as simple as that. Where can I get a hot dog or a beef sandwich? But we're asking a lot of questions. Your customers are asking questions too, whether you're selling gym shoes or whether you're selling insurance products. They're still starting with questions. Think about these little stats at the bottom, this rule of thumb that I added in. People have visited 8 sites before they see yours on their research journey. So we believe that a customer found our site, clicked on it, and bought something. Rarely true. If you're using Google Analytics, you've probably taken a look at your attribution reporting in Google Analytics, and you'll see that maybe they started on a search engine, they came in, or maybe they started on an ad, maybe one of your emails triggered them and they visited. What we don't see is where they went after they left or where they were before they showed up. So they might have been doing the research out there, other sites, and found you along the way, whether they found your product, your brand name, whatever the case may be, they found you and they showed up at your front door. Here's the other thing that I pay attention to a lot is that very few people buy something when they first visit. It's going to take me several visits to buy something. You have to convince me that you're worthy of the transaction. A friend of mine, Dave Berg, likes to say, and I use this in an advertising sense. This isn't really an advertising presentation, but Dave likes to say, nothing ruins a great ad faster than a crappy user experience. So think about that. If you've got a very beautiful ad and wonderful ad copy, and you entice somebody to come to your site and they show up and what the heck is going on here? There's that mismatch. It's that same thing, right? Users are trying to figure out if they should do business with you. I have a philosophy that if a website's awful, 99% of the time, I will not do business with that company. If I'm desperate for their product or service, I'm going to have to transact. But 99% of the time, I run away. If it takes too long to load, I run away. So think about that. You're trying to create an impression with these folks. So think about your customer. What are they trying to do? Let's dive into that a little further. What are their goals? What are your goals? I'm going to say this is a bit of a bold statement, and you're looking at this saying their goal is to buy something and your goal is to sell something. Here's what I'm saying. Those are two different goals. You may say, no, it's not. I'm trying to sell something and you want to buy something. Let's find the match. What I'm really trying to say is that in between there, those 8 visits to other sites or the 5 visits to your site or the consumption of different materials from you, that's all education between their desire to buy and your desire to sell. All too often, we look at trying to sell something really, really quickly, and we do the sell side of this. We do the push, we do the push, we do the push. How can I quickly sell something? And listen, there's a place for that, but it's down the funnel, right? Top of the funnel, awareness and consideration. What do we need up there to entice these people to continue evaluating our product? How are we going to express that the value they're getting from our product or service is greater than that of our competition? Maybe it's price, maybe it's value, maybe it's customer service. They want to learn part of that story. They don't want to have to take a leap of faith into this. I was doing some comparisons for a client a couple of weeks ago. I apologize if that sound is coming across to you. It's not supposed to be ringing on my laptop, and I'm not going to touch anything because it'll break. I was doing a comparison. Our client has a very niche product in a very large space. They've got a great opportunity to talk about their product and their service, and they're going against this behemoth that has, I don't know, hundreds of product and service offerings. And the really interesting part is you'd think the behemoth would dominate. Well, the behemoth doesn't know what they're trying to educate somebody on. They have so many products. Their website is a bit far wide and bit deep, and they haven't focused on their customer to think about what is the customer's journey through this and what are the assets that I need to put in place so that I can educate that customer along the way. When I was evaluating the 2 sites between our client and the competitor was doing very little to draw you through that customer journey or even the marketing funnel to have that conversation with you, to educate you, to gain a little mind share that would keep you coming back. So here's my question. How many sites do you visit when you want to buy something online? And hold on. You can't just say one and you can't say Amazon. That's not what this is about. I do it too, but this is about your site and your product, excluding Amazon. So how many sites do you visit? Where do you start your research? You start your research in a search engine. Do you start your research on Facebook, finding out what your friends are looking at? Is it that somebody posted a really cool product on Instagram and you say, hey, that's pretty neat, I could use that? Or somebody mentioned something on LinkedIn and you said, wow, that's a really cool consulting idea. Maybe I should find a consultant to do the same thing. That's where we start these things. We love referrals. We love, somebody like my friend Brian at the top of this presentation. We love him to say, hey, Steve, I really like this product. I really like this company. Maybe you should speak to them. We did that a couple of weeks ago, in fact, and we're going to start a new relationship as a result. Those things start there, but you always go out and do research. Even when Brian told me that, I went out and I did a ton of research. I wanted to find out what he was seeing and if I could agree with him. And I trust Brian implicitly, but I have to build my own trust. He can't convince me of his beliefs. I have to create my own in that situation. So we're trying to do that with our customers. When they click on our site the first time, or they found us somewhere else, and then they show up at our site, what are we doing? Are we trying to sell them? Are we trying to educate them? Are we hoping they'll buy on the first click? The good news is 10% of them might buy on the first click. The other 90%, that's where we're focused. All right. So I'm suggesting we re-personify our customers, your customers. What do they look like, right? Does it just look like marketing Mary or Matthew, who loves their 7:30 cappuccino, stays at the Holiday Inn and vacations in the Bahamas? Because that's what our personas look like. And I'm not saying that's wrong. Those are great. Put them on the wall. What I'm saying is that we need to walk a mile in our customers' shoes. We need to establish a rapport, some relationship with these customers. What do you want to happen when you're on that journey? What frustrates you about websites that you're hoping to buy a product from and they just tick you off just enough? It's happened, right? It's happened. Come on, admit it. It's happened. Probably might have happened this morning. You get frustrated and you found somebody else to buy the product from. That's what we're trying to solve for is that frustration. It's that information, whether it's a graphic, whether it's a video, whether it's an article, an ebook, something that helps the client along the journey. I'm not trying to push them along the journey. I'm trying to entice them to come along. If they really need something, yes, they're going to go buy it. Sometimes that's price sensitive. It depends on the cost of the item. But our job is to ask these questions, right? What are they looking at? And I have my pal Mike Davies to thank for these questions. It's this: what are you doing to augment or add to your personas? What are you doing to get into your customer's head? What questions would you be asking if you were your customer? And listen, there's an unconscious bias in you taking over and being in your customer's shoes. So what some people do is they ask. We've asked our customers in the last 9 months, we asked our customers, what do you like and not like? What keeps you coming back to BFO? What entices you to buy from BFO? I suggest you do the same thing and you include some of these questions, whether it's in your marketing Matthew persona or whether it's just simply part of your playbook for digital marketing. Think about answers to these questions and then keep those handy, and think about how this last piece, how are you going to build assets or content to bring them along the continuum? How do you do that today? Do you focus on blogs, ebooks, articles? And listen, a lot of us only have time and energy to do some of that. I get it. I'm just going to suggest that we use our time a little differently and focus, and we'll get there. So this idea is, what do we need and when is the key question in marketing, right? It used to be, let's go back to Mad Men, right? It was billboards, it was newspapers, it was TV, and it was radio. That was all the marketing. And sales would field those calls when they came in. We didn't have email, we didn't have social media, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have all these things that get you diving at this marketing funnel from different stages, right? You can almost enter the funnel anywhere today. Google Ads has us enter right at the bottom of the funnel. If you're ready to convert, Google Ads is one of the best in the business. If you're not quite ready to convert, we're talking about awareness and consideration from display advertising. And then social media, LinkedIn and Facebook sort of squish the funnel down because you can enter in 2 or 3 places. If you really want to buy, you can. If you want to learn, you can. So you jump into the funnel. I'm not going to talk about advertising too much more though. But this is it. You need assets there too. What is the content? What is the message you're sending to your customer and when? And are there keywords involved in that? I'm not going to deny that they are, but this customer strategy, that drives it. That drives the keywords you want. It's not the products you sell, it's what the customers are looking for. Flip that conversation, learn from your customer. All right. This is our modern customer journey, and you'll see these labels change a little bit along the way, right? This just happens to be a slide that I thought was wonderful for this because it shows across this continuum, if we go from left to right, it'll show you some of the different types of marketing and advertising that's out there, some of the different content or assets that people might be consuming in these different places. And the key to this is a lot of times, I think we focus in the middle. And we spend some time on social media, which is great. We spend some time writing lots of blogs and articles. What are we doing out here? What are we doing out here to increase our findability? What are we doing even further out here to increase our awareness? If we're focused only on our website, people have to find us. It's a little harder, right? Well, this is why we chase Google, right? Because Google helps people find our website. I get it. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Our responsibility to our customers is to understand maybe where else they're searching and understand if we can put content or assets on those third-party websites. Maybe we buy an ad there. Maybe we co-author an article or white paper. Maybe we give something away for free to those sites. Maybe it's an affiliate site. We're into affiliate marketing and we give them a product to test first and they write a review because we've given them a free product. All of those things are great for interest and awareness. And I would actually take some of the social media in terms of research and kick it back over here. And I mean, they call it social and search advertising on here, but this is where you can create a lot of awareness in your social channels. If you've watched LinkedIn over the last 12 months, you see that LinkedIn is becoming a little less professional networking and a lot more social networking, with LinkedIn events being self-contained. We're adding videos to LinkedIn. You can post your articles to LinkedIn. There's a lot of opportunity. I look at that as generating awareness. But if I think about that, whether I'm using that LinkedIn content for advertising or for organic social, it's still content and it still needs to speak to my customer at the right place in the journey. And the crazy part is, right, your same customer might stay in LinkedIn for 2 or 3 places, 2 or 3 stops in this journey. they're going to need to learn about you there. Hopefully there's one or two pieces of content, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 19, and they can start painting a picture of what your organization is and why they need to buy from you. When I think about this, I think LinkedIn is a content repository. That's what it is. Your salespeople, your marketing people, your executives, they should have profiles that speak a little bit to the organization, especially your sales and marketing folks. If I'm going to buy from you in LinkedIn, I'm going to go check out not just your content, the stuff you're publishing, or what the CEO has to say. I'm going to start looking at some of the individuals too. Those are the people I'll be working with on a day-to-day basis. Same thing goes in Facebook, right? Maybe a little more product focused there on Facebook, but you're still going to do the research. You're going to see if your friends like it. You might ask one or two of them, and then you're going to continue doing research, but I'm going to consume this information along the way. My goal is consumption. When I'm looking to buy and you're looking to sell, the middle needs to be filled, educating me to the point where I give you my credit card. Okay. How are we doing so far? Everybody all right? How's lunch? What you having? I'll get lunch after this. I hope you're enjoying the presentation so far. Let's keep talking about content. Quick slide on types of content. These are different content types that you can use and leverage. I just wanted to put it up here so you can think differently about it. And there's probably more. You would probably add to this list. I mean, feel free to in the chat, let us know what you think is missing, what else, and what works the best for you. What content types work the best for you in attracting and converting your customers? And I'm looking in between that buy and sell, those jumps in between buy and sell for the customer. What are you trying to do? What are they trying to do? And how are you speaking their language is the question. Each piece of this content, yes, certainly there's conversion related content in here, but each piece should be helping them get to their destination. It's not always to help you sell a product. And I think we make a mistake often where yes, everything should have a call to action. Okay. Every piece of content should have some call to action, whether subtle or whether right in your face is a bullhorn. Yes, they should, but they all need to teach, educate, and they need to bring the customer along that journey. They need to think about the journey. And it's not a perfect continuum. I can't put one piece of content out there and have the next piece of content start where that one left off. That's not how it works. It's ultimately just about thinking where they are in the journey and providing assets so that they can continue that journey. Think about it as hopscotch, right? You're jumping from box to box to box. Ultimately, you get to, what is it, Sky Blue? Been a long time. I think I've seen like a FedEx commercial or something with hopscotch. But you get to that destination, right? And what we need to do is we need to create that next asset or content to get you to the next point. And guess what? It may not even be your content or your asset. It may be somebody who's purchased from you before. And they're saying it. I'll go, hey, Brian, I saw this company and I really think they're cool. And he'd say, oh man, I love them. They're wonderful. You should definitely look into them. Here, let me send you a link to the product I bought. Great. I was looking at metal detectors the other day, and I'm going to reach out to that site because their site is I have some challenges, but I was able to look at metal detectors. So it was pretty cool. All right. So these are your content types. This is some of what you're looking at. Okay. Did I lose my camera? No, my video's on. Okay. Just checking. Your screen changed. All right. So let's keep going. I think Brian, do you want to wait till the end for questions, or did you want me to jump in and answer them along the way? Oh, we lost our Brian. Oh, well, I'll wait then. All right. So the who, what, where, when, and how of this. Start with.
No, let's wait till the end.
All right, great. Thank you. So start with strategy. And what's not in here about strategy or goals and objectives, how I define strategy is how we're going to win the next period. I don't care if that's a day, a week, a quarter, a year, a decade. I need to define how I'm going to win. Part of it's a vision, right? How many clients do I want? How much money do I want to make? Do I want to renew a bunch of revenue, right? Those are my questions, right? Even if I've got existing customers, I can use this content to work with them, to keep them in the pipeline. New customers, I want to start with my strategy. Where do I want to go? Then I want to take my marketing Mary, marketing Matthew, or my social Sammy or Susie. I want to take those personas and I want to make sure they fit into my strategy. And then I want to take that updated, and I'm not saying blow up your personas. It's add to your personas, wearing your customer's shoes. And then align those personas with content and journey steps. Just think about that. Think about squishing a couple of graphics together. It could turn into a marketing calendar, but as we all need marketing calendars and we talk about it, we beat drums for marketing calendars, you need a strategy first. Yes, you can do a lot with a calendar if you just organize your social, your blog, your email, and your Twitters, things like that. Yes, you can do a lot here. What are my Facebook posts going to be? What are my LinkedIn posts going to be? However, a calendar does not excuse you from developing a strategy. What about all of those actions is leading to your greater goal? If those aren't aligned toward the greater goal, why are you doing it? You're just making work. You might be making noise. Maybe your boss told you had to write 3 articles a month. Fine, bosses can do that. Sometimes I do it, but it's never without a goal. So if you're writing 3 articles a month, or you're putting out 4 posts on LinkedIn, or you're commenting 27 times a month on LinkedIn, whatever the case may be, what are the goals? Ask what the goals are. Ask yourself what the goals are. What is the outcome I'm trying to achieve? That's the strategy, right? Then you build your personas into that. How many marketing Marys and how many social Susies can I bring into the fold, right? How many conversations can I have? Can I start? It's a little funny to think about that, right? Because you really are, if we're attracting people into our website and consuming our content, it's really the start, the new start of the sales funnel. Ultimately, we want them to become a customer. And whether it's an e-commerce transaction where they point and click and buy on your site, or whether they have to talk to sales, that whole funnel up front is still part of the equation. So what are your assets? And this is where I'm asking you to marry some things again. We always think about, what am I going to put where for my customers? But what am I going to put where for my customers to meet their needs? How am I going to help them get closer to their goal? Yes, it's my goal too, but how am I going to help them get closer to their goal? What am I going to do? How am I going to marry those two things? Build that into this thing. Build it in. Think about, what am I doing to answer their questions? What content am I putting out, and where and when am I putting it out? And yes, it ends up in a calendar. And then think about that. Where are the locations of my content? Am I using social media? Am I using my website? Am I using email? Am I moving things to third-party websites? Do I have some good friends in a great network that I can share stuff with? And can we write with and for each other to help promote each other's businesses and products? Absolutely. But you have to think about where your customer is on that path. What are the keys to this, in my opinion? It's really two things. I want to cover that gap with education, and I want to build rapport with my clients. I want them to be excited when they finally point and click and they hit submit or they click buy, that they're excited because what we've done is we've helped them so much, convinced them so much and so well that your solution is the one that they need. Now, here's to hoping they don't get a lemon. We've had that happen too, but that your solution is the one they need, that's the one, and that they're excited to get it. And we won't talk about customer service and follow up, but the idea is that you're building that excitement into your brand, into your product, and you're bringing the customer there. Think about some of the brands that build excitement, right? We can do this on a smaller scale, whether you're small, mid-size, or even an enterprise organization. You can build some of that excitement. And even if you're a big old commercial brand, you can build a little bit of interest, even if not excitement, right? You can build these things in terms of your content, your assets. And folks who might be in the construction space said, how am I going to build interest in pouring concrete? You know what? Are you better than somebody else? What does your customer service look like? What does your follow-up look like? Are your estimators on time? These are all little assets that you have that are to your advantage. Do you have a clearly defined process that you can publish? You can put it out there on the web and say, here's our process for getting you through this. You will have one clear point of contact, and you will have these steps and milestones. This is how we're going to make sure that your concrete is the best concrete ever. That brick wall is going to meet your specifications. Yes, it's a job, and yes, it's construction, and yes, we do those projects all the time. Your new customer doesn't know that yet, do they? They're looking at you and they're comparing you to AAA concrete and ABC concrete and 123 concrete and everybody else. Can they is are they comfortable doing this small commercial job, or are they used to doing industrial jobs? Oh, do they do more residential? What do they do? Spell it out. Put it in their way, in the right place at the right time. So you can do this in all sorts of different spaces. All of our businesses can benefit from this in educating our customers and building rapport with them. And I've said this already. We of course need calendars. I think, speaking for my organization and probably many of yours, what you need more than that is accountability. People to be able to turn around the content, you to communicate effectively, getting the content we need when we need it, so we can keep the calendar moving forward. Different conversation altogether, but yeah, I'm sure you've faced that too. So, all right, shall we keep going? Let's talk about the SEO components of this. Right? We said we're not going to ignore it, but I want to flip this a little bit. My question over there, and please throw this in the chat, is why do you think this image on the right side might be lying to us? I'd love to see your feedback in the chat. Um, what I think is that if you have your customer strategy, that drives your content strategy. Sound good? Do you need keywords? Yes. Do you have to live and die by keywords? No. Use your keyword inventory. Google's really good and Bing is really good at understanding semantics and language. We're really good at it as humans. Google's trying to replicate that. So, yes, focus on key phrases and such, but don't sweat the nuances. Use different forms of the phrases and words, and let's go with that. So, think about your content, and the right content for what I'm calling your repersonas at the right time is nearly as important as some of the tagging we're doing for SEO, your meta tags, your page titles, some of this stuff. Yes, it's important. But if I'm talking about the image on the right side, Mike put it in the chat. He says, hey, put your customers in the middle. I'm with you, Mike. Strategy can be in the middle too. Absolutely. I don't think SEO is in the middle of this drawing. In fact, I think marketing and strategy are at the top of this, right? Our customers are in there, and all these things point to our customers. That's great feedback. Great feedback. And I'm not saying ignore SEO. I'm just saying that it may not be the center of the universe. Let's talk briefly about platforms. I've got a couple of favorites, and one of these is new to my list. I'm going to tell you, HubSpot CMS Hub, wonderful upgrades. HubSpot is what I call a near enterprise CMS, meaning that they can handle international sites. They do SEO very, very well out of the box. It's built in, language tagging's built in, canonicals are built in. They've got so much cool stuff in that platform. It's crazy cool. We all know WordPress. I still live by the idea that Google loves WordPress. So if you're thinking of WordPress versus Drupal versus Joomla, and I'm not knocking Drupal and Joomla, I'm just going to say that Google loves WordPress. They love the taxonomy. They've tuned their search engine and their algorithms to understand the WordPress taxonomy. I know this from experience because we tried to overbuild the site at one point in time and it just nosedived. And then we went back. We didn't build it on WordPress. We used a WordPress-like taxonomy, and the site took off. It hockey sticked for us. Magento has some really wonderful SEO tools built in. They're not perfect. None of them are. Adobe Experience Manager, AEM. It's one of those enterprise class CMSs. It has to be on this list because of its size and shape. Among those at that level, it probably has some of the best SEO tools. Not always my favorite to work in, but it can get the job done. And what I'm saying is get yourself a very friendly, very SEO friendly CMS. That's the key. And this is when you can sort of stop chasing Google. It doesn't mean you're ignoring SEO. It means you picked an easy button. And listen, you may still want a wonderful consultant, and I might know somebody to help you through this, to get your SEO right, and even help you with your content strategy and mapping that to your keywords, leveraging the keywords in your content, leveraging the keywords on your website. Absolutely. You should absolutely do those things. But if you're choosing a very friendly CMS for SEO, you're already 50% there. So if you can stop worrying so much about your SEO and your platform because you've bought a strong platform and you've informed the platform. Buying a strong platform and having a web developer telling you they know SEO is not a complete formula. You should always have an expert overseeing that, whether it's your transition strategy to a new platform or it's informing the platform through SEO research. What I find is developers are wonderful at making sure SEO works on a website when they build it and what their strength is. And some are good at this. Their strength is not in identifying and supporting your marketing and content strategy with an SEO strategy that aligns to the website. They're very, very good at implementing it and making sure SEO is there and their title tags and things like that. But make sure you have an SEO looking at the top of it. And again, there are thousands of platforms out there. These just happen to be the ones I like working with. Sitecore isn't bad. It could almost make this list. I wouldn't add WebSphere to this list. It makes my head hurt when I'm talking about SEO. Actually, Shopify is very SEO friendly for those of you in the smaller e-commerce space. I don't like Squarespace for SEO. So, and these are all my opinions, right? Everybody's got opinions. The truth is somewhere in what's going to work for you. But some of my advice when I think about this stuff is to evaluate the platform, and you'll see it later on. Make SEO friendliness a business requirement of your next site or your next platform. All right, a couple of slides, and then we'll open up for Q&A. I'm going to round out the Google SEO question a little bit because I don't want you to believe still that I'm saying run away from SEO. Please don't ever ignore Google. I think and the second piece here, I think I've said it already, is let your content strategy drive your keywords and not vice versa. And yes, if you do your homework and you're looking at reports, you're going to find keywords that are new and showing up. Great. Move those back into your content strategy. Don't just track them and say, I need to optimize these pages for this keyword. Let your content strategy drive that. Okay. Yes, make sure that you're tracking your rankings and your traffic. Back to the friendly CMS. Yes, make it friendly. Find a friendly CMS. Hire an expert if you don't have the time or the talent. And don't kid yourself either. It doesn't have to cost a fortune. There's small projects, large projects. It runs the continuum of people out there who can help you and do it very effectively and efficiently. Please know that I believe the content, the definition of content and personas is broken. And this only comes from what I see people publishing. They think content is that middle spot where we're talking about blogs and articles and maybe posting on social media. It's thinking about that entire customer journey and what content I need there. What is the first thing that a customer is going to pick up and say, huh, I really like BFO, or interesting, BFO, never heard of them before. That gets a little mind share going. What is that piece? How far out in that customer journey is it? For us, it might be a year or two out. I need to make sure there are assets further out. Yes, do I want my sales pipeline to be fat and short so I can close customers very, very quickly? Absolutely, I do. But I can't assume that everybody is going to start talking to me and learning about me day one and sign a contract on day 120. It doesn't work that way. If you were to ask your customers when they first learned about you, many of them probably say a few years ago. Oh, it was several years ago. I saw something. It was here or there, or somebody mentioned you in an article. It's that kind of stuff. Building a little mind share. It doesn't have to be everywhere all the time. It just has to be where it's supposed to be when they're looking. And personas. I'm not saying personas are awful. I'm saying ask those questions, put those key questions in your personas, and make sure you're answering them actively. Make sure you're looking at those from time to time. I posit that if you get your assets and your content right with a friendly CMS, Google will start chasing you, and you don't have to focus on chasing Google. Do I want you to do quick answers in Google? Absolutely, because Google's changing the way the SERPs work. They're putting different things at the top of the search. Do you want to be in the people also ask? Absolutely, you want to be there. If you do recipes, do you want to be part of the carousel at the top, or do you want to be one of the listings at the bottom, right? So yes, use schema, use quick answers, use all those things, use them to your advantage. My ultimate suggestion in some of this is that focused, intentional customer focused and driven wins. The more you know who your customer is, the better you can speak to them. And thinking about customers for just a moment, it's this idea that, well, I've got 12 personas. I personally think 12 might be too much, but you might have a huge business with three different sort of verticals, right? And you may have 3 or 4 personas in each one. That's cool. I get it. Makes sense. Make sure though you're not overbuilding your personas, and make sure that you're not building personas for personas' sake. Who are your best customers? Who are the customers that look like them? Who are the customers you want to work with? Build them into personas and think about that. And think about creating a content and a communication strategy really at the high end of this, to have that conversation and to build that rapport, and make yourself accessible. I love chats. Anybody else who gets an automated chat, try to mess with and break the chat, and they hate the fact, you ever hate the fact that it constantly asks you questions and you can't type anything, and it just wants you to answer a series of 1, 2, or 3 really questions that don't relate to what you're there for? Well, put a human behind it, or at least, I mean, listen, I know we close at times, right? We're not all 7 by 24, but let us know up front that you're a bot. Please tell us, hey, I'm Steve the bot. I'm here because Steve the human isn't available right now. If you want to chat for a bit, I'm happy to do that. And then I can forward it to Steve the human, and he'll reach out to you when he's online. We can do stuff like that. We can humanize our bots. And even that, when we're talking about content and assets, think about your bots, scripting your bots, where they live on your website, where they are in the customer journey. What's the message your bots should be sharing? Hey, I've noticed this or this or this. Can I help you with that? And please, please, please give them an opportunity to put free text in. All right. All right. My prescription to flip the script. 4 steps. Certainly not as easy as me just putting them on a slide. But I hope you understand, after going through all of this, that there are opportunities for you to improve the strategy, develop the content, and support your customers in a little bit different way. First, customers. Let's get to know them. Let's upgrade our personas. Content. I poached this from the military. I took out some of the curse words they used, but proper planning prevents poor performance. And this is a good place if you're not aware of content strategy. You need to learn some things, or you've never worked on a content strategy or content calendar. It's a great place to find some help. Even just talking to your friends. I'm not always saying that you should go call BFO and we should help you, although I'd love it if you did. Ask your friends, ask somebody who does it better than you, or you think does it better than you, and they'll tell you they scratch their head plenty too. And then together you can solve problems. Number 3, SEO. Yes, do it. Yes, track it, but let your content be the guide. Let it drive that way. Your taxonomy of your website should be driven by your customer wants and needs, not by whether or not you think that the category title should be left or right or center, or whatever we argue about being at the top of our website. And then finally, platform. Make gooder SEO a platform or business requirement. And if you're on one of those other platforms that I didn't mention, don't sweat it. You can still do good SEO on those platforms. I'm just saying it's not as easy, and you might have to invest more time and money. And SEO is never easy. The SEOs on the call are probably cursing at me. You're telling people SEO is easy. It's never easy. There's a ton of research that goes into it. There's a ton of rolling up your sleeves and making sense of content, making sense of keywords, making sense of web pages, and even conversion. So I don't mean to say that SEO is easy. I'm just saying SEO can be easier based on your platform decision. All right. With that, I want to say thank you to my friend Mike Davies and my friend Sam Budak, who've helped me immensely pull this thing together. So thank you both for your contributions and your smiling faces on this slide. And last but not least, my final thoughts, and this is where Brian's going to show his smiling face and we'll get into QA. The last thing I want to leave you with is let your customer strategy drive your content strategy, drive your SEO strategy. That's your continuum. If you have questions, feel free to hunt me down. If you want to chat, I'm Steve at, I think you know the domain name. Hi, Brian.
Hey, Steve, thanks so much for all of that. And we do have several questions. So We'll get to those momentarily. For everybody who is interested to ask a question, go right into that Q&A section in the tray you see below. Type that question in, and we will, time permitting, get to them. Just a few quick thoughts. You see the reminder again of the June 24th webinar at noon Central Time. That's personalizing your B2B LinkedIn marketing strategy. So certainly if there is a B2B component to what you do, this should be a very valuable and informative webinar for you. On to the right is Josh Dominguez. Many of you have probably chatted with or heard from Josh. He is our account manager, and he is a terrific person with whom to follow up relative to any questions that you have relative to what you've heard today, or what you or relative to what BFO offers too, as well as you can see Steve's email handle for reaching him at befoundonline.com. So with that in mind, let's get into some of the questions. Some of you provided questions to Josh in advance of the webinar today, which is terrific. Let's get to some of those first, and then the other questions that have come in actually during the webinar. Steve, most people are focused on Google, but what is the impact that Bing or other search engines are having against Google, and if there are any that are going to be important in the near future?
The Bing thing. So the general advice, industry advice, is optimize for Google and you'll do okay on Bing. The thing to know about Bing is that there are a lot of enterprise organizations who control the desktops and laptops of their employees to a point where Bing is the default search engine. So in many cases, what we see better performance in Bing than we do in Google. We don't see the volume, but we see better performance. So as far as threatening Google, Bing's not going to challenge. Yes, they've got a decent market share, but there's been no giant innovations from Bing that made people say, "Ooh, that's a really cool feature to go over there." Some of the privacy browsers are getting a lot of play, especially with cookies going away. So you might see some of those continue to grow, but they're so tiny right now. To threaten Google would take an enormous effort and some uptake.
Great. Thanks, Steve. And thanks for that question. A question came in from Tamara just during this session. Why do you not like Squarespace for SEO?
It makes it more complicated than it needs to, and I can't do all the things that I want to do. Now, they may have upgraded it since I looked at it several months ago, but it's just harder than it should be for SEO. And there are other platforms out there that are simple that you can use for SEO. And so you don't have to build a site as complicated as a WordPress site, but you can do something a little better than Squarespace.
Okay. How about the impact of algorithm updates on rankings? What are you seeing from them?
Well, we haven't seen the latest algorithm updates yet. Google kicked those down the road and they're rolling them out slowly. So you're always going to see Google stir the pot. And the upcoming page experience updates are intended to stir the pot for users. Now, before that, we had I'm going to mess this up. If Mike was speaking, tell me there's where Google's looking at your content on a long page as different passages of content. It's a passage update. That didn't shake up the rankings. So right now, Google's not chasing bad guys, as far as I can tell. But if you're looking at your rankings and you're looking at risks to your rankings, go take a look at Google Core Web Vitals, or go look at GT Metrics, or go to the on-demand webinar of the page experience update from a few months ago, and look at that, because you can leapfrog your competition by making some performance and usability improvements on your website.
Great, thank you. Another question, is it better to stick with a couple of keywords or business functions, or alternatively go broad and focus on a bunch of them?
Every SEO uses this answer. It depends.
Right.
I think what you need a keyword group. You need related keywords. You need semantic terms. Now, it all depends on the size and shape of your site. You can't target a single web page to 50 keywords. It just doesn't work. 3 or 4 or 5, yeah, maybe that'll work. What's your money keyword? What are your secondary and tertiary terms? You may find that a play on words of some sort, or just a different way of expressing it, something semantically related, drives more traffic. It's really interesting that way. And you'll see, you can't see those keywords on your website anymore. Of course, Google changed that years ago, but use Google Search Console to find out what people are searching for and to see what keywords they're putting in and where your content shows up. So that's going to help you drive whether or not you should add more keywords, or, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And you can test a little bit that way too. It takes some time, but feel free to start using keywords, but don't go really, really broad. Now, listen, again, if you've got 50,000 SKUs on an e-commerce website, yes, you're going to need a lot of keywords. But if you're a smaller site, maybe you've got a few hundred pages, focus on your customer needs and let your customer needs drive your keyword choices.
Okay, good. Any tips?
Brian's stuck. Uh-oh. Am I stuck or Brian stuck? Somebody tell me.
Oh,
he's back.
okay. Sorry about that. I'm going to stop my video. Hopefully that gives me a little bit better performance here. Can you hear me now, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So any tips on heat mapping your site to see how your content is or isn't working, and any good plugins to use?
Heat mapping's cool. The one caution with heat mapping is that oftentimes you have a same link in multiple places on your site, and you'll get the same heat map over the three. So make sure you're actually tagging those a little bit differently, whether you're using event tagging or something else, just so you can separate those clicks, and they'll separate in the heat map too. But heat mapping and eye tracking will sort of tell you what the customer is doing and what they're looking at. And what you can find is you can find that what you thought should happen isn't. and you'll adopt and you'll change. As far as plugins, nothing immediately comes to mind. I just sort of cycle through plugins. If anybody has a great plugin for some of this stuff, please feel free to drop it in the chat.
Great. Also, an attendee commented, I have a Duda website. What do you think about that?
I'm going to be honest. I don't know what a Duda website is.
DUDA. Did I mispronounce it maybe?
No, you probably got it right. It's just one of those, thousands of CMSs out there. It may be awesome, but now you've given me something to go look at. And if you'd like to follow up, I'll take a look at it and let you know what I think.
Okay, that's good. And then a question came in. A person's running a company out of a residence and doesn't want to put the address in Google My Business. Does that hurt rankings?
So my advice is, well, it doesn't hurt rankings per se. What it hurts is local citations and click-throughs, especially if you're a local business. Think about one of two things. A PO box, you can use the physical address of a PO box, 2743 North Simpson, as your address, and you can I think you can submit that to Google My Business. The other thing you can do is use a co-working space, and sometimes you'll be able to pay them simply for an address.
Great, thank you. And then we did receive a chat with some input relative to Microsoft Clarity being a good free alternative to Hotjar. Let's see other comments. I heard Duda is very popular and it's very easy to use, and this is why my designer used it. Let's see. How can you scale? Another separate question. How can you scale putting yourself in your customer's shoes? Do you provide an array of content that addresses various issues our customer could have to make a connection, and then draw some assumptions from their engagement?
I think my pal Mike Davies would suggest that you answer their questions. So what are the questions you believe they're trying to answer? And then put those answers out and see how that content resonates with them. And then ask them if they're looking for something more or different. So you can scale it by talking to those various personas and understanding the questions, because the questions will change over time and your assumptions of the questions might not be right. You can also bring somebody in to do surveys, whether you're doing a survey monkey or whether you're actually doing active outreach to find out what your customers are thinking. Take a subset of your existing clients and ask them what questions they're trying to answer. every day in their business, or what questions they'd be trying to answer when they're looking for your product or service.
Okay. Steve, last question. If somebody's not working with a digital marketing agency today, but is intrigued by some of the topics we're talking about today, what's a sort of a point in time by which you think somebody should maybe look at working with an outside agency?
Have a conversation. There's no harm in having a conversation. Talk to a few agencies and see if somebody speaks your language. See if they understand the opportunities and challenges you're facing. See if they're focused on goals. There are a lot of agencies out there that can help you and will support your goals. And the key is that rapport I talk about is we want to work with people who we get. And I want to work with an agency who I get. When we talk to our partners and vendors, I want to talk to them like I've known them for years, even if I've only known them for months. And I'm happy to say we've got some amazing relationships in place today that weren't there a couple of years ago. And I love working with our partners. And it's finding that. And if you can find that plus the ability to scale your digital marketing, then it's a win-win.
Great. Steve, that's it for questions. Thank you for your insight today. And to all of you who've joined us today, we really appreciate you attending the webinar today. Be on the lookout for the follow-up email that will have a link to the recording of today's webinar. And then, as always, Joshua Dominguez is there to provide support as well with any kinds of questions, access to resources, follow-up that might be necessary. We hope to see you next June 24th, this coming June 24th. Again, if you've got a B2B LinkedIn marketing that's part of your marketing mix, this will be a really instructive webinar. So we hope to see you there. Registration is available. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Brian.
Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Take care.